Look up right now. That sun sitting up there, the one you squint at, complain about, wear sunglasses just to avoid, disappeared 74,000 years ago. Not behind clouds. Not for a rough week of weather. It vanished behind a sky the color of wet ash and didn't come back for 2 straight years. A volcano in what's now Indonesia detonated with a force so massive, it's still the biggest eruption humans have ever lived through. Ash choked the stratosphere. Sunlight barely reached the ground. Temperatures across the entire planet may have dropped by more than 15 degrees. And somewhere on this Earth, inside that darkness, a small group of humans had to figure out how to keep breathing, keep eating, keep their children alive, with almost no sun at all, no summer to grow food, no warmth to dry hides or heal wounds. Just 2 winters that never fully ended, stacked back to back, while the entire food chain underneath them was collapsing. And that raises an uncomfortable question. If that happened to nearly every human alive on the planet at that moment, how are you even here to hear about it? Most people get this wrong, including plenty of scientists who spent decades studying it. For 25 years, the accepted version went like this. The eruption nearly ended our species. Population crashed to somewhere between 1,000 and 10,000 people worldwide. Every human alive today supposedly descended from that one terrified, half-frozen handful. That story is dramatic. It's also, as it turns out, a lot more complicated than anyone wanted to admit. There's a clue buried in volcanic ash on the opposite side of the planet, found in a river valley nobody expected, and it undid most of what scientists thought they knew. I'll get to it. And there's something else. Right now, today, there's a pull you feel toward the ocean that you can't fully explain, a calm that hits the second you see open water. That feeling has a birth date, and it's older than you think. But first, we go back. Way, way back. To the 2 years the sun disappeared. It's roughly 74,000 years ago. The southern coast of what is now South Africa, near a stretch of shoreline archaeologists now call Pinnacle Point. We'll call her Kaya. Her hands are cracked and stained rust brown, scarred from years of prying mussels and limpets off wet rock with nothing but bone and stone. The sky above her hasn't looked right in weeks. Gray during the day. A strange, dull red at night, like the horizon itself is bruised. The air tastes like the inside of a cold fireplace, ash fine as flour, settling on her skin, in her water, on the leaves of whatever plants haven't already died. Inland, the herds are gone. The grasslands her people once depended on have gone brittle and brown, then nothing at all. The animals that survive are starving too thin to be worth hunting. 2 of the children in her group haven't stopped coughing in weeks, from breathing in ash that never fully settles. Kaya stopped counting how many days it's been since anyone saw the sun clearly. The forest behind camp has gone quiet in a way she's never heard before. No birdsong, no insects, just wind moving through dead branches. Kaya learned a long time ago. Silence like that is the most dangerous sound there is. But she isn't looking inland. She's listening to the tide. What her people figured out is the reason you're alive to hear this sentence. Researchers didn't confirm it until decades later, and when they did, it upended the whole extinction story. Rewind to 1998. A geologist named Stanley Ambrose was staring at something strange buried inside human DNA. Compared to almost every other species on Earth, humans carry shockingly little genetic variation. Chimpanzees separated by a single national park carry more genetic diversity than the entire human race spread across 7 continents. Ambrose had an explanation. Something around 70 to 80,000 years ago crushed the human population down to almost nothing. A bottleneck so severe that every person alive today might be descended from as few as 1,000 to 10,000 survivors. He looked for a cause big enough to do that. And he found one. A supervolcano called Toba on the island of Sumatra that erupted around 74,000 years ago with roughly 10,000 times the force of Mount St. Helens. For comparison, Mount St. Helens leveled forests for miles and killed 57 people. Toba operated on a scale nobody alive had ever tried to imagine. What's even crazier, the crater it left behind is now Lake Toba, 60 miles long and 20 miles wide. One eruption carved a lake you can see from space. Picture the actual physics of it. An estimated 10 times more ash and rock than any eruption of the past 2 million years blasted straight into the stratosphere. Sulfur gas turned into a fine aerosol haze that wrapped around the entire planet within weeks. Sunlight couldn't get through it. Not fully. Ice cores drilled out of Greenland show a sulfate spike so extreme that researchers believe global temperatures dropped somewhere between 3 and 17 degrees Fahrenheit and stayed there for years. not days. Trees that depend on a summer to survive the winter simply didn't get one. Photosynthesis slowed to a crawl across entire continents. Some models suggest the plume damaged the ozone layer itself, letting in more ultraviolet radiation right as everything on the ground was already starving in the cold and the dark. This wasn't a bad season. It was the closest thing our species has lived through to an actual nuclear winter, minus the weapon. Researchers who've spent entire careers reading sulfate spikes out of ancient ice say Toba's signature doesn't look like anything else on record. It's not even close. And somewhere in the middle of all that ash, human beings were still trying to raise children who might survive the night. Wait, before I tell you if they made it, there's something you need to understand first. Ambrose's bottleneck theory, the near-extinction story, was built almost entirely on genetics. Nobody had actually tied the ash itself to a human site. Not yet. Then, in 2007, they did. And it came from a place absolutely nobody was looking. A team led by archaeologist Michael Petraglia was excavating a river valley in southern India called Jwalapuram, thousands of miles from the volcano itself. They found a layer of ash, over a meter thick in places, dated to exactly 74,000 years ago. That part wasn't surprising. What was buried directly underneath it and directly above it was stone tools. Thousands of them. The same style, the same technique on both sides of the ash line. Which meant one thing. The people making those tools were there before the eruption. And they were still there after it. Making the same tools, the same way, like nothing had ended their world at all. Petraglia put it simply, whoever was living in that valley seems to have persisted straight through the eruption. Not vanished. Not restarted from some desperate handful. Persisted. Remember what I said at the very beginning about looking up? That's about to make a lot more sense. Back to Kaya, on that coastline in South Africa. Her people had something the inland herds didn't have anymore, and something the sky itself couldn't take away from them. The tide. Twice a day, whether the sun showed up or not, the ocean pulled back and left behind mussels, limpets, whelks. Food that didn't need sunlight to grow, didn't need a summer to ripen, and didn't care that the sky had turned the color of a dying fire. In 2018, a team led by paleoanthropologist Curtis Marean published research in the journal Nature that pieced together what actually happened on this coastline during the eruption. What they found surprised even them. While inland ecosystems collapsed, this stretch of coast barely changed. The shellfish beds held. The people eating them came through the eruption largely undisturbed, while the rest of the continent starved in the dark. Now think about that from your own kitchen for a second. The thing that may have saved a piece of humanity during a 2-year apocalypse was seafood. Okay, we've been building to this from the very beginning. The genetics said we nearly vanished. The ash in India said some of us endured. The coast of South Africa said some of us did more than endure. We thrived. So here it is. Humanity didn't survive the Toba eruption because a lucky handful got saved by chance. Humanity survived because our species had already spent tens of thousands of years becoming ridiculously good at not depending on any single food source, any single climate, any single plan. Coastal groups fell back on the tide. Inland groups who had already diversified their diet, their tools, their territory, held on longer than anyone predicted. The apocalypse didn't select for luck. It selected for flexibility. Let that sit with you for a second. Because it means the 2-year darkness wasn't a lottery that a random few thousand people happened to win. It was a filter, and the humans who passed through it were already carrying the exact habits that let them. That's backed up by the evidence. In 2018, sediment cores pulled from Lake Malawi in East Africa, analyzed by researcher Chad Yost and his team, showed no major disruption to that ecosystem during the eruption window. Life, mostly, went on, which means the near extinction of humanity, the story told in documentaries for 25 years, probably never happened the way we were told. And that says something about you too, not just about ancient humans. You're not descended from the luckiest 1,000 people on Earth. You're descended from the most adaptable ones. But wait, there's one more piece, and it's the part that never makes it into the thumbnail. For 25 years, textbooks, documentaries, and yes, plenty of videos exactly like this one kept repeating the near-extinction version, a tiny surviving population, humanity on the absolute brink. It's still one of the most cited ideas in popular writing about human origins, and here's the uncomfortable part. Scientists have known for years that the full weight of evidence doesn't really support it. The ash didn't erase Jwalapuram. The coast of South Africa barely flinched. Study after study, in journal after journal, chipped away at the extinction narrative, and almost none of that ever made it into a documentary, a textbook sidebar, or a viral post. The dramatic version keeps getting repeated because it's simply a better story than some ancient humans were just really good at adapting. We do this constantly. We choose the more dramatic version of events over the more accurate one because our brains were never built to reward actually. It's complicated. They were built to reward a good story that spreads. The same instinct that let a myth about near extinction survive for 25 years in serious science writing is sitting in your phone right now, deciding what you'll share before you've even finished reading it. Remember how I started this? Telling you to look up? Now you know why that matters. Every single day, the sun is just sitting there, doing its ordinary, unremarkable job. You're living inside the outcome of 2 years when it very nearly didn't. And that pull you feel toward the ocean, the way your shoulders drop, the second you see open water, the way a seafood dinner feels almost ceremonial, the way a beach vacation feels less like a treat and more like coming home. None of that is random. That instinct is older than agriculture, older than pottery, older than almost anything we'd recognize as civilization. It's Kaya's instinct, carried forward generation after generation into you. You don't just happen to like the beach. You're the descendant of the people the beach refused to let die. Think about that next time you're staring at the ocean with your phone in your pocket, feeling something you can't name. You're not imagining it. You're not some disconnected person living tens of thousands of years later. You're the continuation of an unbroken chain of people who kept finding one more answer, one more food source, one more reason to keep going, even when the sky itself seemed to be giving up. The sky went dark for 2 years. It didn't take us with it, not because we were lucky, because somewhere, someone kept checking the tide. You didn't survive the apocalypse. You were built by it. If that changed how you see a cloudy day or a plate of seafood, subscribe. Every week we go back further to find the exact moments that decided whether humanity continued at all. And next time, the 3 days a cave lion decided one of your ancestors wasn't going to see a 4th day. You'll want to be here for that one.